be a great day. It's going to be a great conversation. We got 25 minutes as usual. What we'll do, everyone, is we'll make sure to leave. Drop your questions in the Q&A. I will do my best to monitor them on LinkedIn and on the Zoom if you're joining there too. But then at the end, we do kind of more of a round robin Q&A. So if you guys have any other burning questions, myself or Brad will do our best to answer them. I can't promise you that we'll answer them, or we'll make something up at least, to try to answer it. So let's just jump in, Brad. And first kind of question, I'll toss it to you, is just when you think about revenue strategies today, and I just feel like I don't know what it's going to take, because companies, I just see it over and over. Sales leaders continue to try to scale the way that they scaled 10 years ago or 15 years ago, where we have to grow revenue with headcount, and we have to, as opposed to like more efficiency. We buy this technology, but we're like, that's for the ops guys. And we don't really pay attention, to what these tools could actually unlock, because, we just don't know and we're ignorant. What are, for you in particular, what are the top maybe one or two, I guess, like issues that you see today with most people? Because you talk to a lot of sales leaders like I do in their revenue and sales strategy. What are you seeing right now when you think, man, like this is a common one?
Yeah, from a strategy perspective, because, well, I'm sure we'll talk about tactical and some systems and all other fun stuff, but just from a pure strategy perspective right now, I think a lot of folks are doing their best, A for effort, on trying to understand what strategy fits their business the best. But I think one thing that's a little confusing, and I think this is probably something folks need to change, is not every new strategy is the strategy your company needs to employ. I think the funniest one that I see right now, a lot of classic enterprise level companies that are used to seeing this, 3 to 6 month plus sales cycle, trying to engage in a PLG play, which, it's not a one size fits all. It's a one size fits some,
A
the
very
right ones.
specific type of offering, not
Yeah,
everything.
but I hate to say it this way, not be too contrarian of like, it's the flavor of the week and that everybody wants to go jump on board with it. But I think that is one thing that a lot of companies are trying to deploy strategies against, that some it work for, but some it just doesn't. And that's okay. But we're gonna see that with other new trends. We'll talk about some chat GPT here in a second too, I'm sure, because you can't go a whole 30 minutes without probably talking with somebody about that in this industry. But I think that's one of the biggest ones, is some folks are getting excited about new strategies, but they don't exactly align to their business. The other one, and again, you want to come in hot on a Monday morning, coming from the ops guy who spent over a decade doing this for a bunch of companies. The one thing that I'm seeing, especially from our customers and folks I've talked to a lot, is yes, we are getting almost, I don't say religiously neurotic about the processes that we put in place. But there's a handful of times I've seen it, and even in purchasing experience myself, people are taking the eye off the ball of the actual customer journey. And you're making folks jump through so many steps to follow so many processes, and you kind of forget about just the actual customer themselves and what they actually want to achieve out of this conversation. So sometimes process inundation can get in there too.
Yeah, I think that that's such a good call out, and I talk a lot about that too. Yeah, we have a process in place for us that's detrimental to the customer in their experience. I think we just haven't realized, like, we live in a very now world. We expect information at the tip of our fingertips. We don't expect to have any hurdles. One click buying, next day delivery. And B2B buying, I feel like we've candidly regressed a little bit. Instead of removing friction, I think I see it quite a bit, what you're saying, which is where people are, again, like, if someone comes in inbound and says, hey, here's who I am, this is what my company does, I'm interested in ABC, I'm already using your competitor, you're going to have a qualification call with me? What are we talking about here? So anyway, great call out there. Let's talk about, obviously, like the tech component of this. So you started to talk about this kind of like flavor of the week. And I think sales technology in particular fell into this in 2021, and now is seeing a little bit of a reckoning here in 2023. I call it like year 2 or year 3 churn, where we had all this money we'd saved up in 2020. We went and spent it all on every toy. Then we only implemented it like 20 or 30%. And we know that because we come in on the back of these implementations and we see what's working.
Oh yeah.
And now people are like, maybe we don't need this. And candidly, it's not the tool's fault. It's the change management and the deployment in the first place was never going to set this up for success. So if we shift gears, we talk a little bit about RevOps, right? Which I'll lump RevOps in the flavor of the month category. We had to create an ops team for our ops teams, which is kind of hilarious that we just couldn't instead just collaborate. But let's talk about this idea of like what goes into a great RevOps team. And part of it is what you and I are talking about. And what do you feel like? Because what I do is I think I would say probably 50% of companies just relabeled sales ops and just called it RevOps.
Yeah.
And then maybe like 10% of the companies I think actually have it right. The other 40% have just got it's not like they don't have a seat at the table. I consistently see with RevOps, Brad. And so it's like, you want this department to help to streamline, the experience for customers and sellers, but then they don't get a seat at the table, so they can't do anything. So those are just a few of my gripes around RevOps and getting it deployed correctly. What do you see in terms of like the companies that are doing it right? Like what are some of the behaviors that you see with these organizations, whether it's around how they implement technology or how they support the business in general?
Yeah, I'm going to start with the ones I've seen go wrong first, because I think that's always a fun place to start. Let's learn from our mistakes before we go and make enhancements on anything else. You're spot on. Many companies that I've seen, and look, this is coming from a guy who's done RevOps for 10 years, well before the buzzword was out there and all the excitement and attractiveness that got into the greater mainstream side of it. But I think a lot of companies have redesigned it to just say sales ops or siloed ops in general. It's like, man, all right, we need these different departments to start acting better together. Let's just put them all under an umbrella and kumbaya a little bit around a campfire, which isn't a bad thing to do, but make sure you have a strategy behind it. The ones that I've seen work poorly, and I've even seen a few of our customers roll it back and say, yeah, we tried this RevOps strategy, we did it for a year. It just wasn't working really well. We needed to go back to departmental, operational support, which is also fine. It's not a one size fits all or one shoe fits all, right? But the ones that I've seen it do best are the ones that aren't masking RevOps for departmental operations. I've seen a lot of org charts where it goes, all right, you got this RevOps leader, and then let me just hire 3 managers underneath that for supporting sales ops, marketing ops, and success ops. And
Right.
I think you're masking some of the silos, but I'll give a big shout out to Faraz Abdel over at Outreach. Known Faraz forever, one of our customers for a long time, and he's done it beautifully the way he's orchestrated his 20 plus person ops team, I believe. And it's more by discipline and more focus area. So he's got categories or silos inside of his RevOps team that support business systems management, that support territory design, that supports a lot of obviously all things strategy. So he's got a couple of folks on his team that just focus on strategy. What is our next vertical? What's our next big needle mover for our business? And you can tell through the way that I've just even described those 3 channels that he has, none of them are specific to just supporting sales or just supporting marketing or just supporting success or back office. He's got them all supporting cross-functionally, but he's got siloed disciplines for his team, which I've seen work really, really well.
Okay, I like that. So basically, it's not just a hodgepodge of like ops things. It's also, and again, I think that you called out some of the things that go in. I think a lot of times when we hear ops, we immediately think technology, and ops is just a component of that, or maybe I think that.
Yes.
I think ops is just a component of that, but also again, if you have the right team in place, it's a process exercise first, and then it becomes a technology, which makes a ton of sense. What else? Like, what else do you see in terms of like how companies can identify maybe like where they're at, like their gaps from a technology or operation? So, you've got, the general, the team at Outreach doing it really well, other teams that have kind of either dialed it back. What can we do, or what can leaders do to better identify the gaps, that they may have, whether it's operations or technology?
Sure. I will say, I'm sure a lot of ops folks are listening to this and they're saying, well, that's great that he's got a 20 plus person team. I'm an army of 2. What am I supposed to do with subdividing 2 people's tasks? That is a challenge. And I think you're seeing more companies invest more in RevOps, which is why you've seen so much of I think it's 400% year over year growth of titles alone just on LinkedIn. But yeah, to the lean teams, it's tough to start subdividing all those tasks and responsibilities. The biggest piece of advice I can say that I've seen work well, but I can also say that you'll kind of die if you don't do this the right way, is just the effective communication and prioritization. We can't all boil the ocean. Sadly, ops can't fix every single issue in a company. We wish we could, but we're not, we can't be over bullish on that. But the biggest thing that I've seen differentiate for really successful ops leaders, even on lean teams, is that beautiful ability to say no and say no with grace, but also by incorporating that no cross-departmentally. We've all been there. We get the request that, hey, look, I'm working on implementing something like SalesLoft or Outreach or Groove or Apollo, pick your flavor. And then, your marketing person comes flying in over the top and says, hey, I know you're working on this thing over here, but I've got to get this landing page fixed. I've got to go get this new way of capturing all those lead forms, or hey, we're going to push out this new PLG motion. And it's hard to tell that person no. They've got a lot of excitement and a ton of emphasis and urgency on that. But you should be able to say no, like, hey, I'd really love to help you. Let's get a quick meeting with our counterparts over in sales. Let's see if there's a way that I can pull off a few hours of this project. See if they're comfortable with me being about a day behind to help you with this urgent matter. Didn't say no, but you just brought two new leaders into one conversation to make sure there's full alignment on where you're prioritizing your time, because time's valuable.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and I think it's interesting. We had a client last year. It did not go well. Every year there's usually like one of these, and everybody wants everything now.
Of course.
And I cannot tell you that what Brad is talking about, having a very thoughtful, deliberate plan in place to fully finish projects, get things over the hump the correct way. Versus, I would say the majority of ops teams that I run into are kind of the land of, forgotten toys from projects. It's like, oh, that project got to this 80%. This one got to 15%. And I feel like, again, just the tax that puts on your company whenever, because they see it, they know that this stuff's not going to get done, or there's no trust there. Or again, they're always in the fire drill as opposed to like, no, this is our roadmap. And really, I think what I see great RevOps team, they run it just like a product team does, where they've got their dev schedule. They've got, hey, is this a low, medium, or high lift? Is this a low, medium, or high impact? They slot it in there. They run it just like kind of a Scrum for Agile style floor, and it works really, really well. But it's aligning strategically with where the business is going, and like you mentioned, and I think you could be a team of one doing that. You can be a team of one who says, and just it's so shocking how many teams actually don't have SLAs with groups. So it's like, hey, marketing, here's my SLA with you. Hey, sales team, this is my SLA. Hey, exec team. So there's just some very basic procedural things that I've seen, Brad, that like when you put them in place, just makes life exponentially easier.
Totally. I'll give you one fun example. Somebody told me this the other day, and again, to surface this the right way, or to say it the right way, this isn't an urgent burning product related thing, but think about a product and engineering side. Yes, you might have bugs that you need to hot fix. That yes, you reprioritize what you're working on in that sprint to go and fix those sort of things, right? If they're fully customer facing and customer impacting, yes, I'd still put those at maybe 1% of the time. So we're not going to focus on that. But 99% of the time, when a product and engineering team gets some type of feedback from a customer, or you're ideating internally about what that next big rock you're going to go develop, you don't take that idea and go and fully disrupt your engineering team and flip the table upside down on them and say, hey, I know you're working on this big thing, but go change the color of this button from green to blue. You don't do that to a product or engineering team. So operations, why is it that people feel that they can come, fly in real fast and say, I got to get this thing fixed, it's burning? Like, scrutinize that a little bit more. Is it really burning, or, are you going to be able to make it through your last day? Make it to the next step. Here's one thing that I'll say, and this is almost more of like a life acknowledgement as well as an operations acknowledgement. You talk about getting projects done to 80 or 90%. We see that all the time with our customers. That heartburn is still real in like the real world. We're finishing up a house renovation project. Jake, I'm not kidding. We're at 99% done. And we've been at 99% done for about 2.5 weeks now. And it's driving me bananas. Just get the whole thing to completion and start the next thing after that,
That's right. But you got to get it done. You'll be glad that you waited, and I think that's just like anything. If you have a plan, you wait, like I think sometimes we just like, a lot of these needs come in as burning. And, it's like, man, if you really empower this ops team, they're like, okay, cool. I know you want that. Well, okay, I'm looking at our roadmap. I can actually do this, and it's going to solve three of the problems. So instead of that one thing that you thought that needed the button color, I actually can solve it a different way. And I think that product mindset's just a really successful um, an ops mindset too. And so I heard you talk about this word, this like change intelligence,
Yeah.
because look, I've kind of hinted at this a few times now about like that the big issue is a lot of times one, that we don't think about what happens after the release and like the training and all of those things as a part of our change management plan. And so maybe just talk a little bit about, change, like, kind of your thoughts or your observations around, what goes into good change management. So we have this roadmap we've put together, we're executing the roadmap, but then making sure this stuff sticks. So talk a little bit about change intelligence and just again, some of the issues or how it's different maybe from change management.
Totally. I've looked at this, and I'll roll the clock back a long time ago to my consulting days with Accenture and other folks. Change management is a massive topic. And so much of that revolves around end user adoption. And how do you successfully get folks to embrace change, adopt it, really enroll in it, and make sure that it's not going to be a quick flavor of the week or something you learn for a week and then, abandon it later on. So a lot of change management, I like to think of, focuses on the deployment and post deployment. Now, you don't get to have a full change management lifecycle without doing all of the necessary pre-work and understanding what the business case is and understanding what the big challenges are. But so much of change management is truly focused on end user and the people adoption side of it. When we start talking about change intelligence, exactly the category Sonar sits in, so much of that sits full life cycle, but at the very beginning of it, before I can even think about going to make a change. And this is a little bit more tactical and systematic than it is on people adoption side. If you don't have a full understanding of what your change can impact, you're not making a change intelligently. Whatever the opposite of intelligence is, you're making a dumb change in that matter, because we've all felt that pain. And I want to make sure I think about it full circle. We've all gone through projects where we scope things out, we think the right way, and then we hit deploy or we go live. And we realize that while my project might have worked for myself and for one or two end users or groups, man, it just torched all of our finances team, our finance
Right.
team, and the way they invoice folks, or it's going to torch the way our marketing team captures new leads coming in. And so we like to think about it more of what are your dependencies? What are your downstream impacts? And if you don't know every single one of those almost on day one or week one of that project, slow down and stop and think more intelligently of what those impacts are going to make throughout your whole business. We've all seen projects die because you go live and then the house comes on fire and nobody ever wants to use that process again. And the biggest thing that it hurts is your amount of credibility and trust you have in your organization. Think intelligently.
Well, and again, it's like there's such a bias toward action
Mhm.
that causes that. I think, Brad, that what happens is it's like, yeah, yeah, no, 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 like it'll be easy. Like, yeah, no, no, oh yeah, market, yeah, I think yeah, it might, blah blah blah, and it's just like because we're so anxious to like just get started,
Yeah.
and I think that at least for me, that's probably the biggest thing that I see is like, oh my gosh, like just take the extra like 4 hours of meetings to like
Sure.
talk to and the impact that that can have. And again, I'll go back to this um customer issue, and it was the same, identical. And it's like, then no, like you're in this situation because of that. Like
Yep.
there comes a point, and I'm telling you, every company gets there. Well, usually where they finally realize this. They're like, okay, we have to stop doing this. It's not
Yeah.
working. It's breaking things as a part of it. And so like, so talk then maybe just a little bit more on like explaining like the idea of like change intelligence. It's like what how do I get that? Is that just the process of getting everyone on the same page early, like prior to it?
Totally. I think one of your first steps you should always be thinking about. I'm always going to say first step needs to have executive alignment. We all know this. It's tale as old as time.
Sure.
If you don't have executive support and alignment, your project's already destined for doom. So always get that. Step one. Step two, before you lift a finger and do any sort of coding development, doesn't matter if it's Apex or a small validation rule or anything outside of Salesforce. before you click a single button, understand who this could potentially impact. And if you're not thinking of the who at step 2, you've done it all wrong. And combine that with step 1. If you're going to impact somebody on marketing, I would maybe think about letting that head of marketing know, not just your demand gen specialist or somebody else that is a little bit further down the food chain. If you're not getting that adoption all the way towards the top and letting every single department head know, or every single person in those departments that have ownership in that, again, you're going to cause yourself more of a headache. Somebody actually used this analogy to me last week, and it's perfect timing with opening day for baseball starting this week. And you know this from the consulting world too. A lot of operations and the consulting space is built on trust, and you don't get a ton of swing and misses. I mean, you get 3 and you struck out. And so what's the cost of poor change intelligence? Moving too fast, not doing the right amount of interviews, even though that extra 4 hours worth of meetings might be the most painful and arduous side of it. You have actually done yourself a favor for having that conversation first to make sure that you get buy-in and sign off of what you're going to change for that department, along with every other department. We've seen it too many times, and this is why we're so bullish on the change intelligence side. It's fine to go slow, but slow is fast. What's the whole saying? Like slow is fast and fast is smooth, or something like that. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. That's what you should be shooting for, because if you're not thinking about how those changes are going to ripple through your business, you might have 1 strike, you might have 2, but man, I hope you don't make it to your 3rd, because at some point the business will abandon your project or your idea because it has been so thrashing going all the way through it. So
That's right.
make that smooth process all the way through.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, all right, I'm going to summarize for everyone. So, well, here's what I heard. And Brad, I'll kind of toss it over to you for some final thoughts before we wrap up.
Yeah.
I think actually the way that you said it there at the end is just a good way to summarize it. But if you are out there and you're trying to build a world-class ops team, or even, again, a team of 1, team of 2, piecing it together with 2 or 3 people doesn't really matter. The process is the same. 1, have a system of truth. Have a place where you can use a Sauna. I don't care what you use, Monday, whatever you want to use, to where you can manage your request roadmap strategically, not just in firefight mode, and make sure that you then are working on the things that can drive the biggest impact. So if you have that system of record, have that system of truth, I talked on top of that, then have the agreements that you have between departments in terms of response times, things like that, from an SLA standpoint. And then, Brad, I think what you said is, as you start to embark, make sure that you probably add in a little bit extra buffer time to do more due diligence before you just say, oh, that's the next up in the queue, right? Make sure you have that process in place where you can go and really further flush out whatever the ask might be, or what people might actually need. So that's my takeaway from this. And I think that hopefully this is very actionable for a lot of you out there who are trying to build, a good support team. And by the way, just so you know, this exact same logic applies to like lots of other parts of your business potentially as well too. So Brad, that's my hot take. Give me kind of your final thoughts, or anything that you feel like we might have left out.
Yeah. I don't think you left anything out. The way I'd summarize it in a few words is, you create more agency amongst yourself and your whole business with challenge and saying no. And I think so many times I talk to so many ops folks all day. They actually hate saying no. It's in our DNA to say, we want to fix things. We want to be that lifeline for the whole business. But if you say yes arbitrarily or too fast, or you rush through your projects, you don't have enough intelligence to understand how your project is fully going to impact your business, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. And create more agency and enrollment by saying no. Say no with grace, but say no more often, and challenge what those questions are that are coming up in the business, and make sure they're actually moving the needle for your whole company.
I love that. You can say no. That's a great one. And I look, that also goes for most people in various departments, where there is no reward for saying yes and then not being able to deliver. Right. So just always keep that in mind. So Brad, appreciate you, man. It's good to catch up. If you guys haven't checked out what Brad's up to in Sonar, go check it out. We're a partner there. It's really awesome. Again, even going back to this idea of change intelligence, where, by using Sonar, we can very quickly with our Salesforce clients really understand all the inner workings and things that are happening in Salesforce in, relatively instantaneous and maintain a really tight record of changes. So if there's turnover or we transition it back in house, everything's documented. So it's a really great platform. Anybody who's using Salesforce, I'd highly recommend it. So go take a look at what Brad's up to. And Brad, thanks again for joining me, man.
Jake, I appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Have a great rest of your week.
All right.